SCP number 3. Today we're going to be talking about George Soros, his affiliation with different charity groups, with quotes, by the way, and basically who he is and what he does, and also his affiliation or loose affiliation with different political parties and groups.
Yeah. So, before we filmed our first episode, we were kind of talking about different things that we could discuss in different episodes, and you had kind of brought up George Soros then, and I said, yeah, he's an interesting guy to talk about because of some of the stuff he's done, but I was kind of hesitant to talk about him in the first episode or so because it's one of those things where when people say something against him or they attack him, they get very easily attacked by... There's a lot of backlash whenever you say something against him. And I think it's because a lot of people who don't like him, I don't know if they're making themselves clear about why they don't like him, and they come off as uninformed or ignorant or just downright hateful.
Well, I think also the issue is that the people who do a lot of outcry against others who talk about George Soros in a negative way are more than likely the very same people that are receiving some kind of beneficial help from George Soros or one of the many foundations that he's intertwined with.
So you're saying like how someone has a bodyguard, they're like his public persona guards. They're there to protect the integrity of his...
Well, no, not necessarily. It's kind of like okay, well, you've got this one friend who's a total douchebag and you can't stand the guy, right?
Right.
But he gives you lots of shit. Like he gives you lots of money or something.
Yeah.
And then, you don't necessarily like the guy or anything, right? But whenever someone's like talking shit to him, like you kind of feel obligated to get his back because you're like, well, fuck, dude. Like if I don't get his back, he's gonna stop giving me free shit.
So yeah, it's kind of like and that's the same thing as like only I guess it'd be saying that the bodyguard isn't necessarily someone who believes in his job. I mean, you've always had examples in the past of in movies and stuff where you got the king who has like the people that protect him, and really they're just waiting for the king to show enough weakness for them to be able to kill the king and be the new one themselves. And
definitely,
I mean, I guess I could see that, but I also think there's a lot of true believers that follow him, that really believe in what he stands for or what he says he stands for.
Well, the question is how much do these people actually know about George Soros?
And how much do the people that don't like him, how much do they know about him? Because
that's true too.
When it comes down to it, it seems like a lot of people who are defending him, all they know is that, well, if someone's attacking someone who is so good, then they must be just scum of the earth. And the only thing they know that he's good about is that he donates a lot of money to these charities and causes and stuff.
But I would like to also point out that whenever you see someone in a positive light, you are more inclined to not really dig any deeper.
Yeah.
Once you see someone in a positive light, you're like, oh, well, this guy's cool. And then you just go about your life, right?
Don't want to bite the hand that feeds.
Yeah, but, as soon as you, whenever you have a negative opinion about someone, you tend to do more research on that person because you want to get dirt on them. You want ammunition.
Yeah.
So
I think it's worth pointing out that when we say that he donates a lot to charities, and you said so-called charities, that's one of the things that makes a lot of people on the conservative side not really trust him, because it's not that they don't trust someone who gives to charities, it's that his charities don't have plain, simple names. You look at what's his organization of different groups that he supports.
I think it's
the Open Society Foundations.
The Open Society Foundations.
Like, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it can mean multiple different things, right? Like, having a more open and inclusive society, or being for that type of thing. Or it could be like, like no borders, right?
We'll see that's the thing is no borders is a concept that I can wrap my head around. Like I understand what those words mean.
Yeah.
I don't get open society foundations. Like those three words together are just like some kind of weird word salad. Have you been to the website for Open Society Foundations?
No.
Okay, so they use a lot of general words that sound good. Like they're there to make sure that there's not government oppression, and they want people to be able to be free to defend civil rights and things like that. But honestly, a lot of these groups, if you take the terms and you try to Google search them, it sounds like they're things that would give you no answers. Like
what's an example?
So I'm on the website right now, and where's the name of some of their groups that benefit? It's like Business and Human Rights Resource Center. And it's like, what are you doing with that?
Wait, Business and Human Rights?
The Media Foundation.
Wait, what does business have to do with human rights?
I don't know. Resource Center, so it's like you're giving resources. Commission for the Defense and Promotion of Human Rights, but it doesn't really say, well, what's the change you're trying to do, or what's the thing you're trying to protect. It's just human rights in general. Institute for Justice. It's like if you look for these terms, you're going to find a million different things, and how many of them are actually going to give you. Because I tried to search for some of these, and I honestly got like 20 unrelated results for every single thing that I searched for.
Wow.
Until I finally found one thing that gave me something that sounded like it was an actual answer, and it was for a group called AmnestyUSA.org. And they were really focused on, I'm just looking at their they want to release human rights defenders. That's a term that they use a lot, human rights defender. And I looked that up. What does that mean? Because this is a new term by me.
It sounds like it would be a lawyer.
You would think so.
Yeah.
It turns out it's actually a civil rights activist. It's just an activist.
So they're basically trying to rebrand.
Yeah. It's the person that attends the protest. That's what a human rights defender is. It could be anything from a lawyer to, someone who takes up arms to protect people, to someone who attends the protest and buys a cruelty-free vegan hot dog from a street vendor. But yeah, so this group, they want they don't want local police to use military weapons, and they want people to protect immigrants' rights during the recent hurricane and different things. And it says that they want to abolish the death penalty and end gun violence and gender and sexuality identity equality. But I start looking into, they have a section for resources, and they got these manuals on how to protest.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, they have these PDFs on how you can protest, and some of it is useful information. Like, they discourage you from using violence. But on the same page that they discourage you from using violence, they encourage you to cover your face with a bandana and make sure that you don't wear breakable goggles. Just in case someone used tear gases on you. And it's like, what? That escalated quickly. You're showing up expecting tear gas to be used. That's a sign that something's not going right.
Yeah, that is almost like, going to a joust and using a full-on metal lance instead of the wooden one that you're supposed to use.
Yeah, it's like so it's in a kind of a weird way. It's like, yeah, you should totally not expect violence, but totally arm yourself before you go. I'm not saying a bandana is the same thing as bringing a weapon or a
Yeah,
stick,
of course. But it's like putting fucking armor on.
you know a punch is going to get thrown. Like, think about it. And, there's some cool stuff in there, like make sure you're hydrated, bring trail mix and snacks to keep your energy up because you're going to be walking a lot. But then there's stuff like pre-formatted letters to send to the police. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, in the PDF, it has, oh, by the way, as a protest, you're probably going to go ahead and need to know some communication to deal with law enforcement because you might get arrested, or you might want to warn them what you plan on doing so that you can hold them legally accountable for stuff and say that you gave them fair warning. Like, it's got an underline where it has, like, the protester can write their name in and print it out.
Yeah. Wow. But see, that's already looking really super fishy, right? Because if you're engaging in actual legitimate protests, you're probably not at even a slight risk of getting arrested.
Yeah. Oh, and here's another thing. You're gonna love this. Okay, so you got the left and your right, and you got the right that complains that the left uses these like pre-formatted talking points, right?
Yeah.
And they actually had the list of the 100 things, like the 100 talking points.
Wow.
It literally has the list of like 100 days, 100 reasons against Trump, and like that's one of the causes that they have is just hashtag no Trump or something.
Wow.
And it gives you 100 talking points. And I'm assuming that this is in case the media comes up to you and it's like, hey, what are you here for? And it's like, reason number 73.
Rule number 34.
I'm sure that there's a lot of good reasons for this, but it doesn't sound, I don't know. It just sounds weird. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. It's called hashtag Trump Watch is one of the things. And here it is. Like, give me a number between 1 and 100. I'm not even kidding. I'm 52. Right on their website. Number 52. Okay, what is number 52? Expanding conflict and driving up the number of civilian casualties globally. Trump's campaign to bomb the shit out of them translates into hundreds of civilians being killed in U.S.-led coalition airstrikes in Mosul, Iraq, in March. Give me another number.
16.
16. All right. I'm literally just like flipping through this page. Number 16 is under the heading Closing Borders and Shutting the Door to Refugees. Now smugglers are taking advantage of people's desperation.
They were already doing that.
All right, so let's do a role play, okay? You're going to be CNN.
Okay.
So give me a number.
12.
Okay. And then ask me a question. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Sir, what exactly are you protesting?
And now it's even more dangerous to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, okay.
Like, literally.
Wow.
And this is one of the groups that, it's funny because, so Soros has got his group of different charities, and that's like a giant umbrella that then there's these smaller charities underneath it that are more specific, that they have groups, and then they pass off money to these other things. So you've got maybe 7 or 8 levels of movement before you finally get to who's getting the check to do their job, and he doesn't directly touch any of these groups.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about those talking points for a bit, though.
Okay, cool.
Because it's not anything too extensive, but if you watch alternative media or independent media sources like go out into the field and interview like Antifa and these different people,
yeah,
and then like they'll give some of these talking points, right?
Yeah. Like, what's a talking point they give?
Trump's racist, bigoted, homophobic, transphobic. You know, they literally say that. Right? So, and then
That's reasons number 36 on here and 37.
Okay, so then, right, then the reporter, the journalist goes,
Yeah.
okay, can you give me examples of that? And then they go, like they don't know.
Yeah.
And like we're seeing the reason why right now, because they're literally memorizing these talking points and they don't even fucking know if these talking points are real things or not because they haven't done the fucking research.
Yeah.
They're just parroting them. They're parrots. They're parrots in fucking black jackets and masks.
I do think it's funny that it's just number 69, Betsy DeVos. There's a reason. There's a reason because of Trump. Betsy DeVos.
Yeah, so now I'm starting to think that Antifa is like literally being funded by Soros and some of his groups because they're espousing the same exact talking points that are on this website.
I mean, that would be hilarious if we just like cracked the nut of.
But see, like they claim that they're not getting funded by anyone. They're totally independent. They all have their own ideologies and stuff, but they kind of have this core belief. And they're not for any kind of like organization outside of their own system.
No, this is a group that is this specific one is a group that's listed on the website as one of the United States affiliate organizations. That it's not a direct affiliate, but it's one of those that, hey, you want to speak with one of our partners that is in your country, and this is one that's listed. So yeah, they're getting funded. They are.
Yeah, and we basically like. I'm sorry, but you can literally watch fucking video footage of these guys saying the same shit that's on this list.
Yeah, it's like a 20-something page PDF pamphlet that they have, one that you print out that's like 7 pages that you can give to your protesters that are going to show up, and then they got like
kids.
They got like a 30-page one that they give to the protest organizers, and that's the one that contains like the pre-formatted letters to write to police officers.
Wow. Okay, anyway, moving on. Jesus Christ, that rabbit hole.
And I think that's the problem with trying to intelligently describe anything about George Soros is that in order to...
It's spiderweb
so quickly, and then you just end up looking like some kind of paranoid conspiracy theory.
Yeah, you end up looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
Or a paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that he's done that on purpose for that specific reason.
I'm going to give him the credit and say that I don't think it was done on purpose for that reason. Because I think that's how his mind works. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that this is just how he operates as a person.
Yeah, maybe because there is no denying that George Soros is a very intelligent man.
Super intelligent, but I also think that he's very prone to amorality.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that this is one of the things that I'm inclined to believe that this isn't a way for him to misdirect is because of how he kind of made his money, how he really came into power.
Okay, well let's talk about that then.
So there's this whole financial concept of something called shorting or short selling.
Yeah, and that's basically betting on something in the stock market to fail.
Right.
Like instead of like, you know, buying stock for it and hoping that it will go up so you can make profit, you're basically saying, oh, well, I want this horse. I think this horse is going to lose. And if it does, you get money for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really complicated on how it works because it's very layered and very nuanced. But let's say that, you know that, let's take the horse, for example. Say that this horse is worth $1 million.
Okay.
Okay? Because he wins championships. and you think he's going to lose his next race. And if he loses, then he's only going to have a sell value of $800,000.
Okay.
So what you do is you sell a breeder the horse for $1 million. Do you own the horse?
Not if you sold it to a breeder.
Well, here's the thing: you don't even own the horse, and you sold it to a breeder for $1 million. Now, because you don't own the horse, and you sold it for $1 million, your guarantee or your promise is that you will buy that horse back later.
Oh.
So you sell it for $1 million. The horse loses the race. The breeder no longer wants the horse. So then you buy it back for $800,000.
Oh.
And you've made $200,000 in profit.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's how shorting works.
That's tricky.
It's super tricky. Now, Soros did not invent it, and this is a quote from someone who's like an actual financial person, but they said that and I'm going to go ahead and quote the writer. It's Bianca Farnett from thebubble.com. It's kind of they talk about a lot of different changes that are going on. And she said that he didn't invent it, but he made it an art. And she also breaks down some examples. In 1992, he did this with the Bank of England. He short sold 10 billion British pounds. So $10 billion, or $10 billion, $10 billion US dollars worth of British pounds he short sold.
Okay, so he profited that much?
I don't know if that's how much he profited. I think that's how much he sold, and then there was some kind of profit off of it that he made. I don't know the exact number of the profit, but you're playing with $10 billion worth of a country's currency. Okay? Yeah. That's really kind of where he made a big group, or a big impact. He did the same thing in Thailand with the bot. Then he did it in Malaysia around the same time, just a couple of months later. And then in 1997, he did it with Hong Kong. And it's also suspected that he did the same thing in Indonesia, the Philippines, South Korea, and the Singapore, also in 1997.
Holy shit.
So we know that he did it in Britain, Thailand, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. It's suspected that he did the same thing in Indonesia, the Philippines, South Korea, and Singapore.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about, I'm going to buy 100 apples today. I'm going to sell you 100 apples and then I'll buy them later at a cheaper price. We're talking about entire economic systems here of countries, people's livelihoods, people's job security, what sort of investment they're going to get, and he's gambling with this to make profit. Now, he believes, according to his own words, that he's doing this to show that these economic systems and how these hedge funds are set up are unsustainable. So he's throwing the brick through the window of capitalism himself to prove that it's all faulty.
Which is complete and utter bullshit.
But it's also a very metaphorical interpretation of what his followers are literally doing.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't buy that excuse, because if that were a legitimate excuse, I don't think that he would fucking...
You know what? I'll buy the excuse. I'll say, sure, that's what he's doing. He's on a personal crusade, whatever it is. How many people are going to die in Argentina over his crusade?
A lot.
You know? And now he's not happy because there's other groups that are trying to basically counteract the short sell ideology. And this is where, I have a friend who knows a lot more about accounting and finance and everything than I do. and he'd be able to really explain this. I'm hoping I can get an interview with him at some point that we can tack on to the end of this as maybe a bonus content.
Okay.
But there's this war economically going on between people who want to short sell and people who basically want debts to be paid for their value.
Man.
And that's the level he's thinking on. That he's operating on that level, which is why I don't think that it's intentional. I think this is just how the guy thinks. And it's possible to hang with that level of intelligence, which, I mean, we can. I'm not saying that he's so much smarter than everyone. I'm saying that there's a certain level of ethical and moral flatness in your soul that you have to be willing to accept in order to tread those waters. And I think most people aren't willing to tread those waters.
Oh, definitely. I don't really think that it's necessarily a sign of superior intelligence than it is a sign of utter lack of morals.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure that you could be perceived as a genius if you were willing to go places where other people weren't willing to go.
I think it should be perceived as a genius if you're able to understand the economic systems in place and you're able to see them ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you that.
You're a genius if you can build a gun. It doesn't necessarily mean if you chose to fire it at an innocent person that you're still a genius.
Very true.
But if you could build it from scratch, I'll give you that.
Well, okay, so we're going to try to get an interview with with an accounting.
Yeah, he's got a background in accounting. I'm not sure of his exact title. I don't know if he's a financial advisor or.
Does he have a master's in it?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'm sure he's had to have some graduate level, but I hadn't talked with him in a while. But I'm hoping I get some more details.
Okay.
If I'm able to get the interview, maybe we'll be able to record it and tack that on. If I'm not,
or like, if there's any like substantial meat to it, then we'll
tweet it.
We'll make it a completely separate video.
Okay.
If there's any kind of substantial depth and stuff, something more than a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was today's podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.